We're getting closer and closer to Easter. We've been talking about, we've got 2 more sermons in this series, and then we're going to do an Easter sermon, and then we're going to, right after Easter, we're going to follow up with a 3-week sermon about This is Love, building off of Easter, talking about. So we've been talking about on mission, and we've had a lot of stuff going on, and each sermon we kind of open with a dialogue, and we're going to do the same thing this morning. So listen for just a minute, if you would, please. It's been about 3.5 years since the day that he dropped everything that he'd ever done to step out into a life that he knew nothing about. He could still remember Jesus loud enough for only him to hear amidst the crowd, "Come, follow me." Peter knew very little of what he was getting into, but something inside him told him that this was the most important decision he would ever make in his life. Several years later, he could barely even remember the days when his only goal was catching fish on the Sea of Galilee. He and the other guys that Jesus called his disciples had seen the blind see, the dead raised, the waves become calm, and demons cast out. Even crazier was that at some point Jesus had him actually doing the miracles. It never got old seeing the look on the joy of a man's face as he walked for the first time after a lifetime of being paralyzed. Here they were in their 3rd Passover meal together. Somehow, this one felt a little different. As the guys found their spots around the table, Jesus didn't go directly to his seat. Instead, he got down on his knees next to a basin of water and began to wash the other guy's feet. The other guys, like Peter, were speechless. Jesus had spoken about serving others countless times, but this was too much. This was going too far. Peter was the last one to go, and by this point, Peter couldn't stay quiet anymore. "No, Lord," he blurted out as he pulled his feet away. Then Jesus looked deeply into Peter's eyes, much like he had done over 3 years ago when they first met, and said words that once again would forever change his life. Once more, Peter slowly extended his feet and watched in disbelief as the creator of the universe washed the gunk in between his blistered toes. This week, we're in week number 5 of this series. And if you haven't been here before, let me just kind of catch you up. We started out by saying, number 1, that every one of us are called. We're called is not the spiritual elite, but it's for everyone who calls Jesus Lord. Week 2, we answered the question about what's my mission. And we said that our mission is the same mission that Jesus had. Week 3, we asked the question, okay, if my mission is the same as Jesus, then what's my message? Okay, and we answered that, and that is to do that. Then what do I say when I'm on it? So we learned that the message is simple, that we're supposed to share God's goodness, how it has intersected each one of our lives. So last week we were asking the question, well, okay, so who's my mission? And we made it simple that it's those people around us that God has strategically placed us where we live, work, and play. So last week I sent a drawing up to a gentleman in the state, and I said, here is where this church was planted 56 years ago on Jackson Lane off of Roosevelt. And here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to give me every house that is occupied from Roosevelt Boulevard to Leperson, and from Brill to Highland or Golden Park. So you may not be able to see this, but that is that area. It's less than a 1 square mile. It's not 1 mile from Roosevelt to the end of Jackson Lane here to Leperson. It may be close to a mile from Brill to Highland. He gave me that. Let me share with you few things that I derived from there. In there is 2,408 families. 2,408 families. Okay? There are 385 of those families with at least 787 children between the ages of 0 and 17. There are 30 families in this area that are 60 and above that have children living with them. That's grandparents raising grandchildren, because these children are in the ages of 0 through 17. I went back, and you know how many people live? And this is just a guess because some of it, they didn't know quite how many people were there. 4,551 plus people live in that area. Ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about today, why am I on mission? I've gone through and looked. You know who the biggest church is in Mayfield? Calvary Baptist Church. 4,551 plus people. We are the biggest church. I think there's 2 other churches in the area. One is right behind us here, Mayfield, which is right across from the school. And then there's another one, I believe, that is a Hispanic church or another church that's sitting, I think, a block or 2 down. 3 churches. On this side of Brill, and this side of Highland, this side of Roosevelt, to this side of Leperson. 4,551 people. Why am I on mission? Because God has called us and planted. 56 years ago, they had a vision to plant this church right in this spot. Little did they know that 56 years later, they would be right in the middle of this. Think about this for a minute. 80% of the people do not go to church. 80% of those people who do not go to church say that they would come to church if they were invited. 80% of 4,551 people is roughly 3,200 people. A little bit more, about 36, I think, somewhere in that area. About 3,600 people. 80% of 3,600 people, ladies and gentlemen, is 360 times 80. It's 2,880 people. If we could reach 2,880 people, guess what we would do? We would turn this city upside down. And where would it start? From a little place that's deserted over here that nobody really likes to come to, called Mayfield. This is why we are here. And we'll talk to you later on about some of the things that we're going to be doing this weekend coming up. Because when we think about reaching out, sometimes we get overwhelmed. What if we could just reach 10% of those people? Just 10%. That would be 455 people. 80% of the churches in America are under 100 people. Only 16% of the churches in America, 20%, I'm sorry, is over 100 and above. It isn't mega churches. Everybody wants to talk about, let's go to a mega church, let's go to a mega church, let's go to a mega church. The churches that are doing a lot of the work, ladies and gentlemen, is churches that are under 100. They're the ones that's reaching. You want to know why? Because in order to reach people, you got to have relationships. And a lot of times it's very difficult to have a relationship with somebody when there's 1,500 other people there. Or you're going to one service and somebody else is going to another. Or another. Or maybe you're not even located. The next thing that I'm doing is, as soon as I got everybody's address right, we're going to take and load it up on the next map. And I'm going to show you where this church has reached. And in what neighborhoods this church has reached out to show you that this church has the capacity to reach more than 4,551 people. That if we would all take within about just a quarter of a mile of where we lived, we could probably reach somewhere close to over 20,000 to 30,000 people. That's why we're on mission. That's what God's called us to do and where we need to think about. Because as we go on mission, you need to understand that God has put you on this earth to live in this craziness that's going on. And in this craziness, you keep finding yourself with the questions like, well, hold on a minute, what if I'm like a soccer mom? Instead of, or can I just be a regular soccer mom, then a mom on mission? No. You're a mom on mission in the soccer field. When you go there, that's your mission. When you go to work, you got to see your work as your mission. Kids, when you go to school, school becomes your mission field. Sharing Jesus with those kids. How many times are you going to pick up the newspaper and read of an 8-year-old kid being bullied that can't take it anymore and commit suicide because he has no reason to live? A 13-year-old child who's just beginning life, who gets so bullied that they can't take it anymore. A 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, a mother that's struggling, a father that's struggling, a family that's struggling. What do we have, ladies and gentlemen? We have hope to give to them. And this is what God is talking about. You see, a lot of times there are people that are trying to figure this whole thing out. And the best analogy that I can give it to you is this. Jesus is inviting you into what is called a chicken pot pie relationship, not a TV dinner. And there's a difference between a TV dinner. You see, a TV dinner comes in its own little separate compartments. You'll have your meat, you'll have your broccoli and cheese, which I don't like, and I throw it away. That's why I don't get it. Stuff with broccoli and cheese. You'll have your meat, you'll have your vegetable, you'll have your starch, and you will have your dessert. That's a TV dinner. But what you get from, and so what happens is, you're going in and you're eating this TV dinner, and if you're like me, you go for the meat first. And you devour the meat, and when you come to the broccoli, I'm skipping to the mashed potatoes. I don't want that as my vegetable. If you don't like it, I'll give it you the next one. Okay? And I'll go on to there, and I'll go into these other things. And so what happens is, our Christian life becomes like a TV dinner. We've got our church life is in one compartment. My family life is in another compartment. My work is in another compartment, and my play is in another compartment. And what I do is I'll bring God into my church life. And when I get to my work life becomes like my broccoli that I don't like. And so because I don't like my work, I'm not going to tell anybody about Jesus. Because really some of the words that may have come out of my mouth about my work or about my coworkers might not have been reflective of the Spirit of God. It would be the spirit of the other culprit. Jesus is not a culprit, but the one culprit. Okay? But what God wants us to do is to take our relationship with Him and make it like a chicken pot pie. When you get a chicken pot pie, I love chicken pot pies. Cool. They are the best things in the world. Because number one, they don't have broccoli in them. They have vegetables that I like. Carrots, peas, and the best chicken pot pies are the big ones. Like you go to Bob Evans. Those are chicken pot pies. These other little things that they call chicken pot pies are dessert pies. It's 3 bites and they're gone. No, I want something that's got some meat in it. And I hate trying to find 2 little pieces of chicken in a banquet meal. Okay? Or Swanson, whichever you want. But what God wants us to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this: that our walk with Him, it should touch every walk of our life. Do the people that you work with know that you're a Christian? And I'm not saying that, do you wear the emblems? For instance, like, there was an illustration I've seen multitudes of times. There was a guy, an elderly guy, who was driving kind of slow on the road. And as there was I'm not going to say that there was a woman, but that's the story, was behind him. She was very impatient. She was honking and cursing and giving him the salute and everything. And so a policeman pulls her over. And she asks the question, well, how long have you been following me? Well, I've been following you for quite some time. Well, why did you pull me over? Well, I really wanted to see if you were a Christian. Because on your back bumper, you have the Jesus fish. You have this, follow me to church. I love Jesus stickers all over your car. And I was just wondering, are you really what you say you are? The question is, a lot of times, what do? We want to wear the I love Jesus shirts. We want to say all of these things that we are. But yet, if you look at our life, It is not reflective of what we're wearing on the outside. I shared with you last couple of weeks, and then I'll turn it over to Michael with his part, and that is this, ladies and gentlemen. If there has not been a change in you, then you have not got a hold of Jesus. If you are the same, you got a hold of the invitation. Because the last 2 weeks we talked about Jesus going out of his way, speaking to one person, and that one person that he spoke to, there was an instantaneous change and a revival that broke out in both of those places. The demonic man who was healed out of the caverns in the graveyard, and the woman at the well, the Samaritan, that even his disciples had not talked to. As they passed her on the road, they passed her by. And as I said last week, and I'll say again, ladies and gentlemen, I do not care if you've got more tackle on your face that I could just use it for fishing, or if you are tattooed from head to toe. I'm not looking for the outside, I'm looking for the inside. Because it's time, ladies and gentlemen, let's eat some chicken pot pie.
If you have your Bibles, go ahead and open up to John chapter 13. We're going to read verses 1 through 17. Before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now by the time of supper, the devil had already put in the heart of Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray him. Jesus knew that the Father had given everything into his hands, that he had come from God and that he was going back to God. So he got up from supper, laid aside his robe, took a towel, and tied it around himself. Next, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, and he dried them with the towel tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who asked him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you don't understand now, but afterwards you will know. You will never wash my feet, ever." Peter said. Now, just a side note here, I like when Peter says never, ever, and then God just does what he wants, and Peter has to eat his words. And Jesus replied, "If I don't wash you, you have no part with me." Simon Peter said to him, granted, this is just happening. What do you say? Never, ever. Jesus said, "If you want to do with me, you have to do this." He goes, "Not my feet, my whole body." Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. One who is bathed, Jesus told him, doesn't need to wash anything except his feet, but he is completely clean. You are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why he said, "You are not all clean." When Jesus had washed their feet and put on his robe, he reclined again and said to them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord. This is well said, for I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done for you. I assured you, a slave is not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." Nothing out of the ordinary taking place in the very beginning of the story. Jesus, in his third Passover meal with his disciples, are going up and about to have this meal together. And Passover meal, if you don't understand the importance of it to a Jewish person, it's kind of a big deal. It's like their Christmas. They're remembering a very significant event in their history where they were freed from oppression. They were no longer slaves, but free men and free women. And so they're celebrating this thousands of years later. It's still a big deal. So there's probably a buzz. It's a great meal. This isn't just a meal. You know, like we have meals at times, but there are special meals in our lives, right? We have a special meal when? Thanksgiving? Christmas? And Easter.
My birthday.
And so we have these special meals where we come together and we really, really enjoy one another's company. This is Passover. And so in the midst of this, they're getting ready, and then Jesus does something weird. He begins to get up. Not only does he get the water basin out, he takes a towel and he wraps it around himself, and he begins to go around and he washes the feet of his disciples. Now, we look at this and we go, that's whatever. That's different because we have shoes on. No one really ever sees your feet except for summertime, and some people you need to wear shoes during summertime. You know, have you ever seen those scary feet? You know what I'm talking about, those hammer toes. One toe's pointing out to the side, it has a toenail growing the other way. You know, they have some sort of fungus growing on it. And you look at that and you go, oh gosh, it's a train wreck. But yet, Jesus is sitting here washing his disciples' feet. Now remember, back then, their footwear was not what ours is today. And their roads were littered with feces from animals and dirt caked into these people's feet. Blisters on their feet. Sores on their feet. And what they do, Jesus is here and he's washing their feet with the garment that he's wearing. Gosh. They didn't see it coming. Generally, the time you first meet Jesus is utter amazement. It's awe, it's wonder of what he's done. But then eventually you're like, it's Jesus. I'm used to it. But then Jesus does something like this. And it leaves you astonished that the King of the universe is washing people's feet. Talk about a humble moment. Let me put it to you in better terms today, since we don't really wash feet all that often. Who here has changed a baby's diaper? Show of hands. Ever changed a baby's diaper? It's disgusting, right? A pee diaper is not that bad. You can handle that. Poopy diaper, it can be awful. You know, when it blows up, it comes up the front. You know, it's in their hair. And you're like, how did this happen? And you're not at home, you're in the car trying to change this diaper and trying to give them a bath with baby wipes. It's gross, right? Let me ask you this. Who here is changing an adult diaper? That's tough work. It's a humbling experience on both parts. Because you're cleaning an individual who can't do it themselves. Equate that to what Jesus is doing. Wiping a grown adult's bottom is not a pleasant experience. Because one, sometimes it takes the dignity away of somebody else, but doing that cleans them up to restore them, to give them peace of mind. And as you are cleaning that individual up, it's a really tough thing to do. The smell is horrendous. You're in a situation where nobody really wants to be there, but you're doing it. You see, this is what Jesus did when he was washing their feet. He was doing something that was well below him. And you see, the only time we truly do those types of things where we go in and we help clean people up is if we're paid to do it. Jesus here is not paid to do this. You see, Jesus was on mission. And it's easy for us to turn our mission on and off, dependent upon the circumstances and the situation that is going on. Now, I know for a fact there are individuals here that has happened where somebody had to clean an adult person here. And they did it without question. And they did it without whining or complaining. They just did it. You see, that's having the heart of Jesus, where our mission doesn't just turn off. Jesus had all the excuses in the world not to do what he was doing. Think about it. He was about to have a nice meal with friends. It was sort of a party. And here Jesus is still on mission where he stops the party and he does this act. You ever been like that? I don't want to ruin the good time by talking about Jesus. I'm just not going to talk about Jesus. I'll just sit here. The people at the meal didn't deserve to have their feet washed by God. They didn't deserve it one bit. He even said so. He said, one here is unclean. Think about that. Judas was going to betray him. And the rest were going to desert him. And Peter, the one that was supposed to be the foundation of the group, one, right to his face said, Jesus, you're not going to do that to me. And then, several hours later, he was going to fall asleep in the garden. And then, a little bit after that, he was going to curse him and deny him 3 times. And what does Jesus do? Peter, I'm going to wash your feet. There are going to be people in your life that don't deserve to hear Jesus. But it's not your place to decide that. Jesus was grossly overqualified to wash people's feet. Correct? I mean, his education was way more. His status was way more. I mean, he created the universe, so he has a reason to say, no, that's above me. Or that's below me. I don't need to do that. You see, in our lives, we have all these things to say, that's not my problem. You ever driven by a car accident when you were the first person? Drove by, oh man, I hope somebody stops. You just rubberneck your way along. Or you see somebody in distress and you don't do anything about it. You see, Jesus could just as easily have done that. He was overqualified. He didn't need to do it. Seemingly, there was going to be no impact on him cleaning the feet of his disciples. I mean, they were going to be like toddlers. They're going to get their feet dirty right away anyways. You ever said that with your kids? You need a bath, but we're just going to wait because you're just going to get dirty anyways. But what do? We give our kids bath. Otherwise, they look like Pigpen walking around with a dust storm around them, and we don't want that for our lives. We don't want that for our children. It doesn't matter how many times do you clean a pig and it's going to get dirty again. Yet Jesus here stopped to make it a point to show kindness and to show love and to do the very simple task of cleaning that, no matter whether they were going to be dirty again or not. It was an undesirable task. It was dirty. It was nasty. Cleaning people's feet is not fun. I remember when I was an outpatient therapist and I had this gentleman that would come in and I had to do, he had plantar fasciitis, and I had to do what's called deep tissue massage. So I had to go in and I had to dig on his feet. And I would tape his feet up with this special kind of tape that was super sticky. And I would tell him, man, you can take a bath, just don't soak it. You can take a shower, don't soak it. His visits were 4 days in between each visit. He didn't shower. He said, I didn't want the tape to come off. I'd go in there and I'd peel his tape off. It looked like I was peeling his skin off. And it was full of black toe jam, gross. But you know what I had to do? You couldn't use gloves, because if you used gloves, you wouldn't get the right friction. I had to go in there with my bare hands and reach in there, that foot, and get in close and grind that dirt out. It was disgusting. And then I want to put my hands in like a hot water bath and just scold them off. But I had to do it because that was my job. I was getting paid to do it. Here, Jesus is doing an undesirable task and he didn't get paid for it. Finally, Jesus had a lot bigger stuff on his mind, did he not? I mean, Jesus knew. In the first part of this verse, what did it say? He knew what he was going to be doing. If you look back in chapter 13, before the Passion Festival, Jesus knew that his hour had come. He knew that he was dying. He knew that in a few hours he was going to be beaten, spit upon, crucified on a cross. And yet he said, you know what seems like a good idea right now? I want to wash my friend's feet. That is the Jesus that we serve. Always on mission. Not letting the circumstances around him or the excuses that he has stop him from completing his job. You see, Jesus found the foundation of his mission flowed from his identity. Jesus knew who he was. Did you guys catch this back in the bottom part of verse 13 here? It says, you call me teacher and Lord. This is well said, for what? I am. Who is I am? The one true God, Yahweh. Here he is standing firm, telling his disciples, I am the beginning and the end. I am Alpha and Omega, for I am. The power in that statement, but yet we glance over it. His mission flowed from his identity because he knew who he was. He knew what he was setting out to accomplish. You look back and you see the importance of what he's doing here. The hour had come for him to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in this world, he loved them to the end. His mission flowed from the identity of who he was, and nothing stood in the way. The problem with us and our mission is we let everything get in the way because we don't know who we are. What song did we sing, the second song? Do you guys remember? Already forgot, it's okay. I'm a child of God. How's that go? I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I don't know about you, but that song has been echoing in my mind for the last month when I'm alone. It's not even my favorite song, it just echoes in there. It's a reminder of who I am. Yesterday I was working outside, and you can tell I look like a Neapolitan ice cream. And as I was trenching this line, this engine is so loud I can barely hear myself think. The only thing that kept popping in my head is, I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. That's all I just said. Yes, I am. Doing this thing. I'm a child of God. It's a reminder in our lives of who we are. If our identity, if we're secure in our identity of who we are, it changes us. It allows us to do things on mission at any point in our lives. When we worked the Reds games, we had to do menial tasks. We had to make ice cream. We had to keep the area clean. And I remember it was like one of the first or second times we were there. And we were down at the bottom, and they just threw us to the wolves. I mean, lines back to the door. We're like, what do we do? What do we do? And they're like, you just do your job. I don't even know what my job is. And so it's like 6th, 7th inning. People are riled up. Kids have eaten 16 hot dogs. And they're like, I want a cup of ice cream that's $15. And the parents are like, just get the ice cream. And everyone's going nuts. And the next thing you know, I see this kid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is disgusting. Now, we're supposed to keep our areas clean. Now, we had lines everywhere. And there is so much puke. It's like a sea of puke. I could have easily said, that's not my job. I mean, we were busy, we were packing, and then like, we have to keep our area clean, and like, this is disgusting. And I remember just like, all right, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna clean this mess up. It's not my job. But my perspective was, I'm here representing Calvary Baptist Church. I'm here representing Jesus. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna clean this. So I grabbed the mop, and the way I think is really messed up in my head sometimes. And Adam Sandler's song, I'm going to mop all day long. So I'm out there singing, I'm going to mop all day long, and these people are looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? He's singing while he's cleaning up this vomit. I don't know what came over me, but I'm like, this is just, here we go. Yep, clean it up. And everyone's like, what is going on? And I stood up and I looked at this kid and I said, hey, no big deal, man. I hope you feel better. God loves you. And the kid's like, I don't know if I want ice cream anymore. I don't know what I just watched. But what happened in my head was it changed because I no longer was this important person. I was another human being helping another human being in a really embarrassing situation. I mean, hundreds of people just saw this kid throw up everywhere. And we have the opportunity in our lives to let our identity reign. And if our identity is in Christ, it changes. We can do those tasks without worrying what people think about us, what people say about us. Because if our identity is truly in God, truly defined by Jesus, the way Jesus was saying, I am rooted in Him, I know that I'm going to the Father, I know what I'm here for, your mission is clear. You know whose He was. I am a child of God. I am the brother of Jesus Christ. God is my Father. I know what I'm here for. My time has come. Jesus knew His time has come to pay for the sin. My time right now is to tell people about that so they have the opportunity to become like Jesus. Jesus knew where He was going, and we should know as well if we're tied to Him. You see, the power doesn't come from us. It's God flowing in us and through us. As Kathy said, as Kathy Pound got done with the thing, he said, Kathy, that was awesome. You did an amazing job. She goes, not me. Not me. You see, that's God in our lives working through us. When our identity is secured, our mission will flow from that, and power will come over us. And that's true as followers of Jesus Christ here today. You have the ability to do these great things, to change the world. As Pastor Chuck said, 4,500 people in this area alone are counting on you. They're counting on you to stay on mission. They don't know that yet, but they need you. So who's your one?
So let's go back to John chapter 13, verses 6 to 11, if you would. Let's read together as we get an illustration from Christ. He said, he came to Simon Peter, who asked him, he said, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus answered him, he says, what I'm doing you don't understand now. But afterwards, you're going to know. You will never wash my feet, ever, Peter said. Well, Jesus replied, if I don't wash you, you have no part with me. If you don't take a bath, you're nothing with me. Well, Simon Peter said to him, look, Lord, not only my feet, but also all my hands, my head, all of me. One who has bathed, Jesus told him, doesn't need to wash anything except his feet, but he's completely clean. You are clean, he says, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why he said, you are not all clean. One of you has something wrong with you. And we get a crazy response from Peter from here when he says, you know, and Jesus comes back and he says, listen, if you don't do this, then you have no part of me. One of the simplest illustrations of our relationship with Jesus is supposed to be like this, where he pours out. Pour in, pour out. You see, because what happens is we begin by pouring out ourselves to God. Who are we? I'm not worthy. We share with God the good, the bad, the ugly, whoever we are. We begin to start sharing with Him and pouring everything from deep down inside of us. Everything that we're doing. It's like a parent, when you're talking to your child, you don't want to hear just, I get this all the time. I love this illustration. Ask a kid, how was school today? Fine. That's all they tell you. I think that's the only word that they know in their vocabulary is fine. But later on, you find out everything wasn't fine. They had a test. I posted something this week. A little boy came home from school, and he says, Dad, we're going to have a small gathering. We're going to have a small group at school tomorrow. And he says, what do you mean? It's going to be me, you, and the principal. And you find out everything wasn't fine. Something happened. Or your child came home crying, but before they walked in the door, they bucked up. Because they didn't want you to know that they'd been crying. They didn't want you to know that they'd been picked on. They didn't want you to know that they failed a test. They didn't want you to know all of these things. So what do? They just tell you, it's fine. But you see, when we come to Christ, He doesn't want to hear from us when He says, okay, what do you want to say? Everything's fine. No, then what are you here for? No, tell me your stresses. Tell me what's going on in your life. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because why? He's just like a good parent. He's concerned. He wants you to pour out. You see, in the life of Jesus, Jesus had, in John chapter 11, Jesus and His disciples have said they got a way to pray. That's pouring out. In John chapter 12, Jesus is anointed by some expensive perfume in preparation for His burial. That's pouring in. And then here we have in John chapter 13 where Jesus is coming there with the Passover and beginning to worship Him. He's now pouring out. You see, because right after this, Jesus is going to the Garden of Gethsemane. He's not pouring out or pouring in, He's pouring out. He's telling God everything. Everything. He's telling the Father His fears. He's telling the Father, God, Father, you're asking me to do something. that I'm not so sure about here. I know you love them. I love them. I watch some come and I watch some go. And I know that one is going to betray me. I know that. And I know that you chose me because there was no one else that could do this but me, to go to the cross and die for the sins of the world. I know, God, that's what you're asking me to do. But if there's any other way, God, that we can do this, would you let this cup pass from me? I'm pouring out to you, Father. But God, I need you to pour in. Because if there's no other way, Father, then I'm going to go. And I'm going to need you, Father, to pour into me. You see, even Jesus needed pouring into from the Father. There were times he went in and he was fed by the angels in the desert. There were times that Jesus poured out, but there were times that the Father had to come and give him strength to pour in. So why? So that he could pour out. That's the same way it is with us, ladies and gentlemen. God pours out into us so that we can in turn pour into other people. Which subsequently then they can pour out into other people so that those people can pour into someone else. It's a continuum that's continuing going and showing the illustration of what Jesus is doing into us constantly. There are days that God is pouring out into me because there are times that I struggle. God, okay, you're bringing this person into my life and I have no clue what to say to them. I have no clue how to answer the questions that they're asking, God. I don't know the response. God, I can tell them I don't know, but you do. God, can you give me the wisdom to help pour out, to pour into them, to give them what they need? I may never ever see them again, God, but hopefully by pouring into them, they can subsequently pour out to someone else. So that the love of God continues wherever we go. And this is what Jesus was trying to tell us. It was like when you take a pitcher of water that's dirty and one that's clean. That's our life. It's got a bunch of junk in it. And you pour it into the glass. Let me say this to you. You don't want to drink from that glass, do you? But when Jesus comes, ladies and gentlemen, he's got water that is absolutely clean. It has no junk in it. And may I also say to you that the water that Jesus wants to give us, ladies and gentlemen, has been purified by his blood. Amen. The best purification that could ever happen. It doesn't have fluoride. It doesn't need it. Jesus said if you drink of this water, you'll never thirst again. And there are times, ladies and gentlemen, that he takes the dirt and the junk that Michael was talking about in our lives. And sometimes, you ever looked where you maybe, not when you took a shower, but took a bath. You looked at you and you really don't see any dirt on you, but you know there's some there. And you go take that bath. And after the water drains down, and there's just a little bit of suds and scum, you ever look how dirty that water is? And you look at it and you think, I really didn't know I was that dirty. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just like when we come to God, a lot of times we think, we're okay, I'm fine. And he scrubs us deep down inside and there's a lot of junk coming out. Because he's pouring out what he's got to pour into us. You see, when Jesus told Peter he was going to wash his feet, that was his object of replacing his nasty feet clean ones. And let me say this to you. That's why God said, Jesus said, not just your feet, everything. Because he wants all the junk out of your life. So all the good stuff is there to be poured in to someone else. Peter's first response was, no way is this going to happen. But I think that Peter realized I've missed the point of the last 3.5 years that I've walked with him. You see, when we're talking about made for mission, what we're made for is a life in a relationship with God.
So when you look at the last part, verses 13 through 17, it says, when he had finished washing their feet, he put clothes on them and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Pour into them. Just as Pastor Chuck has said, he poured into them. The story has multiple layers. And we see here that some, even in the midst of this, walked away from their foundation. Judas Iscariot walks away, and for a brief period, the other disciples walk away. Some come back, though. The majority of them come back. We also find that God pours more of himself into us. It leads us to greater levels of sacrifice. And hear this. What is a sacrifice? Something pleasant that feels good, right? No. It involves the killing of something. We are living sacrifices, as it says in Romans. You catch that? There's something when a dead sacrifice. It's already dead. We killed it, we put it on the altar, it doesn't move. We are living sacrifices where we crawl onto the altar and say, God, here I am. But guess what? As a living sacrifice, if we crawled on, guess what we can do? We can crawl right off. And you see, we must be willing to let God pour into us so much that we're willing to give a little more and a little more. 16 and 17, very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Sometimes God offers a conditional promise. Sometimes he gives us something that's non-conditional, like salvation. That's non-conditional. You don't do anything. You repent, you trust, that's it. Here is a conditional promise. You do this, and you will be what? Blessed. You guys will hesitate. I don't know what is it. Blessed. You will be blessed. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. God is going to give you blessings for following what he told you to do. Notice he didn't say serve and sacrifice and you get brownie points. Serve and sacrifice and you get favor. He says serve and sacrifice and you get blessed. Do as I do and you will receive a blessing. The more you serve, the more you're like Christ. Oh, doesn't that sound good? The more you serve, the more you're like Christ. I don't know about you guys, but if there's too much of me in the world, there's too much of you in the world. There needs to be more Jesus. There needs to be more other people willing to set aside themselves so that they can serve others. But guess what? The more you serve Christ, guess who you're with more? You're with Christ. Because guess who has to pour into you? If you continue to pour yourself out, guess who's going to have to pour into you? It's going to be Jesus right there with his Kool-Aid pitcher pouring right into you. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody here has a Kool-Aid pitcher. And what do you do when it gets a little low? You fill it back up. You fill it back up. Sometimes you don't even put more Kool-Aid in. You just fill it back up. But what Jesus does is he always replenishes the Kool-Aid. He puts more sugar in it to make it sweet, to make it tasty. He fills up your pitcher so you can pour it into other people's glasses. When we live on mission, that is our why. It's secure. Our identity is found in Jesus. We don't have to seek approval from work, money, accomplishment, our abs, our biceps, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, kids, parents. None of that. Because they all let you down. But Jesus will never let you down. You see, our world around us, the American culture, is upward mobility. You go up, and you go up, and you go up, and you go up, and you go up. To what? A new car, a new house, more of a paycheck. None of that is going to make you happier. You can say, well, you haven't seen my paycheck. I guarantee you it's not going to make you happier. Because once you get a bigger paycheck, guess what you want? A bigger paycheck. If I could just make $1 more an hour. And you get there, and 3 months later, guess what? If I could make $1 more an hour, that would really push me over the edge. That's not it. For those of us who work out, or I'm not saying for those of us who work out like I actually work out. For those of us who want to work out, we say, yeah, if I could just lift more weight, or if I could do this, or if I could do that, that's not going to make you any different. We're chasing something that's fading away. Jesus says, find your security in me. Find your happiness in cleaning grimy feet. Romans 10:15. And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite verses. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring the gospel, good news to people. This world is dying and decaying, but yet we have the ability, we have something to give to others that is going to change this world. I look around this room. Pastor Chuck and I have been at this church quite a while. Some of you just showed up here, and we're thankful that you just showed up. But many of you were invited by somebody. Many of you here came to know Christ because someone talked to you about him. It's as simple as that. This community is not going to see this church and say, you know what, with all of our signs out there, they're going to go, man, I want to go there. No. Those signs don't mean anything. What matters is the people inside of this place. That is how we're going to get people to grace these doors, and so that they can see, not hear a message just from us, but they can see Christ in you, and they can say, I want to belong. I want to belong here because these people love. You see what we hear? We need more beautiful feet. Come in here and get your feet clean, and then go out there and clean other people's feet. Go out there. Take this idea of what you have. And a lot of you, I look around, it's because you specifically, I'm pointing at everybody here, has invited somebody, has talked to somebody, has brought them in. And guess what? None of you are perfect. A lot of you have problems. And everybody starts looking left and right. You're not talking about me. I don't have problems. Yeah, you got problems. You all have problems. But guess what? In the midst of our brokenness, we can make a difference because we're on mission. We're not letting the circumstances of our life, we're not letting cancer and illness and family problems and kid problems and financial problems and work problems and emotional problems and relationship problems, we're not letting any of that get in our way of serving our God. Because why? We're finding healing in the fact that we're serving. Pastor Chuck once told me one time, I was in a bad place. And he said, what are you doing to help other people? What am I doing to help other people? Who's helping me? I'm empty. And he says, you serve more, you get filled. It's one of those backward things of God that doesn't make any sense. The more you serve, the more you get filled up. You want to heal your brokenness? Start by helping somebody else with their brokenness. You want to get out of yourself? Get out of your head? All these demons and all of these anxieties and all these other things that are going on inside you? Move past that and serve. I'm not saying that it's going to completely go away, but what I am saying is it's going to get you outside of yourself for a little bit and give you a reprieve. Sometimes dealing with other people's problems is easier than dealing with your own. But in that, there's healing. Helping somebody else. Doing what Christ did. Christ was about ready to be crucified. and die for something he didn't do, and yet, guess what? He still continues to help other people. How beautiful are the feet. And you can sit and say, God, Pastor Michael, you just don't know. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know all my issues. You don't know what I'm struggling with, my addictions and my... No, I don't know, but God does, and he still says, I want you to go. Life on mission is a life with God. Our lives are roller coasters. And not like the kiddie roller coasters, not where the ones that have little turns and you like the great pumpkin coaster over at Kings Island. You ride that and you go, that's not so bad. I'm talking, this is ones that scare you out of your mind. Where you feel like the track is going to come down, the coasters are flying off. God is going to send you on the ride of your life. It's going to have loop-de-loops, it's going to have corkscrews, it's going to have... You might get sick, and you get off and you got shaky legs. You ever been on a coaster like that? You should ride coasters all the time. Now my blood pressure drops. I get off and I feel like an old man. I want to faint. That's what it's like to be on mission with God. You don't know what's coming around the next turn, but my goodness, you get off and you can't stop talking about it. This is where he wants us to jump on board. The foundation of his mission flows from his identity in Christ, and the same must be true for you as well. We must push forward and go and help people. We have to get out of ourselves. We have to realize that the people we're going to reach here in this community, here in Mayfield, and they simply don't want to hear about Jesus, but we have to take a message that's going to bring them salvation. We must be willing to do the dirty jobs that no one else wants to do. To go get that kid who is sticky and grimy and who hasn't showered in years, and to bring him here and to hug them, and love them, and care for them, and take their parents and talk to them, and make a difference in their lives. Because if we don't, hear this. If we don't do this, God will move this church and find another church that will do it. What did he do with the lukewarm church in Revelation? He spit them out of their mouth. I don't know about you, but I do not want to be spewed out of the mouth of Christ. I do not want to be the vomit of Christ. I want to be the beautiful feet that go. So as we've been talking, we have 4,500 people or more to reach right here in this community. But that's just this community. Where do you live? Who's around you and your neighbors? Who's in your workplace? Who is your one? Are you praying for them? Because guess what? You are somebody's one at one point. And someone took the time to share the gospel with you, to love you and to care for you, and to make sure that you got here today. Do not take advantage of that. When we surrender our lives to Christ, we are giving up our hopes and dreams. Our dreams are gone. And for a good reason, too. They weren't any good. God's dream for you is much bigger than you could ever imagine. So today, focus in on your one, and let's make a difference right now.
Hello, this is Pastor Chuck Cotton from Calvary Baptist Church. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time out to either listen to our sermon or to watch it on video. We are grateful that you've actually taken the time and hope and pray that it has been a blessing to you as it was to us as we delivered it to our congregation. We ask if you have any questions whatsoever that you email us at pastorchuck@calvarybaptistmiddletown.org, or you could come in and give us a phone call, if you would please, at area code 513-423-7251. I'd like to take this opportunity to also invite you to come to our church and visit us, if you would please. We actually have small groups on Sunday morning starting at 9:30, with our morning worship following at 10:45. Prior to our morning small groups, we also provide donuts with coffee, milk, orange juice, a time for fellowship, get to know each other, have a good time before we actually break out into our small groups for Sunday. Our worship services are uplifting, they're fast moving, and everything in our service is just a fast pace. But we do take time every once in a while to slow down as we feel the Holy Spirit moving, and we never want to hinder it in any way. We also have on Sunday evening, during the school year, we have Awana, and Awana starts with the Puggles, actually from age 2 all the way up through high school. And during that period of time, we also have a worship service. Both of these start at 6 o'clock,
and end at 7:30. Our Wednesday night, we have a Bible study, which starts at 7. We generally finish about 8:15. We would love for you to come and visit with us. Don't have to dress up. Just come as you are, because to us, it doesn't matter. You're a child of God, a creation of His, and so to us, you're important to everything that we do. Our motto here is building the kingdom one life at a time, and we hope that we have a chance to visit with you, get to know you as you get to know us. So thank you, and may God bless you.